Where did that go? I remember setting it right here, didn't I? I was standing in the hallway, confused, holding an empty hanger that once carried my favorite coat. Not again, I thought. Another thing missing. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I misplaced it. Maybe I dropped it off for dry cleaning and forgot. But deep down, a feeling had started growing, gnawing at the edge of my sanity. My name is Taylor Swift. I'm 50 now. 5 years ago, when I was 45, my world started unraveling, not with a bang, but with little stumbles, strange silences, and a diagnosis I never saw coming. My husband, let's call him Ken, began making mistakes at work. He wasn't exactly a workaholic to begin with, but the errors piled up fast. He'd forget deadlines, miss meetings, misfile reports. Eventually, he got demoted. I remember sitting across from him at dinner when he told me the news. He didn't even seem surprised. I guess for him, failure was always expected. Still, I was concerned. The forgetfulness got worse. He'd forget names, appointments, even the route to the grocery store. So we went to the hospital. I thought maybe it was depression, work stress, midlife burnout. But what I heard in that hospital room knocked the wind out of me. Early-onset Alzheimer's, the doctor said gently, as if softness could cushion the blow. It's a form of dementia, rare but possible, even in people under 50. I sat there frozen. Ken didn't say much either. It felt like time had paused, like the moment wasn't real. He was 49 at the time. I was 45. We had no kids, just each other. We'd been together for nearly 2 decades, and though our love had cooled with time, there was still a bond. Maybe not fireworks anymore, but a steady flame. His parents offered to take him in. They lived a short drive away in the countryside, sweet, warm people who truly meant well. They even suggested we divorce so I could start over. But Ken refused. He hated the countryside, said it would suffocate him. And honestly, I couldn't bring myself to walk away either. How could I? We made vows, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, and this was the worst. In the beginning, things weren't too bad. He was forgetful, sure, but he could still function. He recognized me, remembered how to cook basic meals, and stayed in most days watching TV or reading books. The medication seemed to help a little, slowing down the fog. But then the mood swings started. He'd snap at me, scream about nonsense. One minute he was calm, the next minute throwing a tantrum like a child. "Stop talking, you're confusing my head," he'd shout. "Just leave me alone." So I did. I backed off. By then, I was the only one working. I'd been promoted to section manager 5 years earlier. Good timing, really. We had savings. No children meant fewer expenses. Financially, we were okay, but emotionally, I was a wreck. I cooked, cleaned, worked, paid bills, drove him to checkups, and bit my tongue whenever he lost it on me. Then slowly, things started vanishing. Designer handbags, new coats, shoes I'd only worn once. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I accidentally donated them. Maybe I left them at the office or in the car. But after the 5th time, I knew something was wrong. These were expensive things I'd bought as little rewards after long work weeks. When I asked Ken, he looked blank. "I don't know," he said. "I don't remember." Of course he didn't. That was the whole point. Every day after work, I'd ask him, "What did you do today?" And every time he'd reply with a shrug, "I can't remember." That was when I really started to worry. What if the disease was progressing faster than we thought? What if one day he wandered out of the house and got lost or hurt? I couldn't live with that fear. So I installed small security cameras around the house, discreet, tucked into corners. I didn't tell him. I didn't want to invade his privacy, but I needed to know he was safe. A week passed. One night after he went to bed, I sat alone with a glass of wine and my laptop reviewing the footage. What I saw made me drop the glass. There in the living room was my husband, laughing, talking, energetic, clear-headed, completely different from the man I lived with. And he wasn't alone. There was a woman with him. Not just any woman. The doctor, the very same woman who diagnosed him with Alzheimer's. She was sitting comfortably on our couch, crossing her legs, sipping wine like she lived there. I felt my heart plummet to the floor. He didn't have dementia, or at least not the way he pretended to. He was acting, lying. For 5 years, he'd been deceiving me, living off my income, treating me like a maid while sneaking around behind my back. I kept watching. "I'm telling you, this illness is perfect," he laughed. I don't have to work. If she asks questions, I just say I forgot." The doctor giggled. "And she believes it?" "Of course. She thinks I'm some helpless old man." They were mocking me, laughing at my loyalty, at the years I spent cleaning up after him, nursing him, worrying for him. "She's my housekeeper and my ATM," he added casually. That line burned into my soul. I sat frozen, the rage building so fast it made me dizzy. I checked our bank account the next day. Zero. Everything we saved over the years, gone. He'd drained it all. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I felt like a hollow shell, numb, empty. But one thing kept ringing in my mind. I had proof. So I waited. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't even confront him. I smiled. I cooked his meals. I asked about his memory and told him I was worried I was getting forgetful too. The look on his face each time was priceless. I knew I was getting to him. 2 months passed. Then one evening, I came home to a silent house. On the kitchen counter sat a piece of paper, divorce documents already signed, and a note. "I don't want to burden you anymore. Please don't look for me. Ken." But I already knew where he was. His affair apartment, paid for with my money. I was ready. I stared at the divorce papers sitting on the counter like a dead thing. He had actually signed them. Just like that. After 5 years of leeching off me, lying to my face, and making me feel guilty every time I worried about him, he thought he could walk away clean, like he was doing me a favor. There was a note beside the papers. "I don't want to cause you trouble, so I've decided to leave quietly. Please don't look for me. Ken." Quietly? He thought of this was quiet? I picked up the note, folded it in half, and put it aside. I didn't cry. Not that day. I didn't even feel anything except an icy clarity that spread through my chest like frost on glass. He thought I'd fall apart, that I'd mourn the loss of our marriage, cling to memories, and sob into our empty bed. But I was done being his fool. I wasn't the one who forgot. I remembered everything. What Ken didn't know was that I'd seen it all. I knew he was still seeing the female doctor, the one who had diagnosed him in the first place. I had kept the cameras rolling. I had footage of them laughing together, plotting together. I even had the recording where he described our marriage like a business deal. "She's got a big salary now," he told the doctor, smirking. "I just have to stay out of her way and let her do the work." And the doctor? God, she laughed. She laughed like it was a joke. Like my life, my energy, my money, my trust were all punchlines. But the final straw? "I've already moved all our savings," he said. "When the divorce goes through, she won't have anything left." That's what made me move. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream or throw plates. I packed the evidence, video files, screenshots, transaction records, and I drove to the only people who had ever treated me like real family. Ken's parents. I'll admit, I was scared. After all, they were his blood. What if they took his side? What if they blamed me? But when I arrived, pale-faced and exhausted, and they opened the door, something in me cracked. "You look so tired," his mother whispered. "Come inside, dear. Let me make you something warm." That simple kindness broke whatever was holding me up. I nearly collapsed into her arms, and when I showed them the recordings, the truth, they both wept. "My poor Taylor," his father said, shaking his head. "I can't believe my son would do this to you." They didn't defend him. They didn't make excuses. They apologized, deeply and genuinely, and promised to support me however they could. It was the first time in years I felt seen. But life wasn't done surprising me. A few days later, I got a call from work. Apparently, my superiors had taken note of my consistency, my leadership, the way I held the team together, even during my personal chaos. They were promoting me to department head. It came with a raise, stability, dignity. I felt like I was finally breathing again. The next day, I filed for divorce officially. I also sent certified letters to Ken and his little girlfriend, the doctor. Each included demands for alimony and division of property. Oh, and just for good measure, I sent copies of the video recordings. I didn't expect a response so fast, but within hours, Ken was calling me. "What the hell is this?" he barked. I answered calmly. "That's alimony for cheating on your wife. Surely even someone as forgetful as you understands the law." "You sent one to her too?" "Of course. Her husband deserves to know what kind of person she really is. I believe he's also filing for divorce now." He exploded. "You crazy woman, you ruined everything." "Oh no, Ken, you did that all by yourself." I hung up on him and blocked the number. A week later, he tried showing up at our old apartment, only to find out it had been vacated. I had canceled the lease the moment he left. He called again from an unknown number. "Why would you do that without telling me? That was my home too." "Ken, you left. You walked out, and you're unemployed, remember? You can't even be the legal tenant." I can't believe you would do this to me. Oh, sweetheart, I said, calm as ice. I bought a condo with the money I recovered. It's small, but it's mine. And no, you are not welcome. He tried another tactic. Well, I broke up with her, okay? She's a mess now. Got sued for a misdiagnosis, lost her job, her husband divorced her, she's in debt. Oh, how tragic, I said, utterly bored. I thought we could maybe, try again. I laughed so loud I startled myself. You really are insane. He kept going, desperate now. I mean, if we got back together, the alimony gets canceled, right? I wouldn't have to keep paying. I didn't say a word. I just ended the call and blocked every number he could possibly use. I thought that was the end of it. But like a bad penny, he turned up again, this time at his parents' old house. Only the house had been sold. His parents had moved into a senior living apartment in another town. They had anticipated this too. They knew if he showed up again, desperate and pathetic, they wouldn't be able to turn him away. So they made sure he couldn't find them. They told me all about it later. I'm sorry, Taylor, his mother said softly, but we just couldn't risk him latching onto us too, not after what he did. I understood, and honestly, I admired them for it. Ken, as it turns out, ended up as a live-in factory worker in another town. No degree, no skills, no friends. Just long hours, bruises from supervisors half his age, and no one left to manipulate. He tried reaching out to his parents for help a few times, but they shut him down. Hard. As for me, I kept my new job. I built a new life. I bought myself fresh clothes, threw out the old memories, and decorated my little condo with peace. Every morning I made coffee and looked out the window, smiling to myself. I had survived the storm. And now, finally, I had sunshine. But don't get me wrong, I'll never forget what happened. Because I remember everything. After everything that happened, you'd think I'd want to erase it all from my memory. Pretend those 5 years never happened. Pretend Ken was just some twisted nightmare I woke up from. But no, I need to remember it. Every lie, every betrayal, every ridiculous excuse he gave while he used my kindness as currency. Because remembering makes me stronger. You know what else helped? Watching karma do its thing. After I blocked his numbers and cut off every last string between us, I focused on rebuilding my life. I didn't want to be that broken woman hiding behind her work anymore. I wanted to live. The promotion gave me stability, sure, but more than that, it gave me a sense of worth again. People respected me. I wasn't just someone's wife. I wasn't someone's backup plan. I was Taylor Swift, department head, a woman who clawed her way out of emotional quicksand and came out cleaner than ever. I redecorated my condo slowly but deliberately. Every piece of furniture, every painting, every coffee mug was mine. Not chosen for anyone else, not based on anyone else's taste, just me. At first, the silence felt weird. I'd come home after work and instinctively listen for Ken's footsteps or his moody muttering from the living room. But there was nothing. Just peace. Just quiet. And you know what? I liked it. I started doing little things I'd put off for years. Yoga in the mornings. Cooking meals for one that actually tasted good. Catching up with old friends who I had lost touch with because I was too busy taking care of someone who didn't deserve me. Some nights I'd pour a glass of wine, sit on the balcony, and play music softly on my phone. Sometimes it made me smile, sometimes I cried. But it was my space, my moment, my healing. Of course, word spread, people talk, especially in our circle of acquaintances. I got a call from one of Ken's old colleagues. Hey, Taylor, I heard about the divorce. I had no idea things were that bad. I didn't explain. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. But he went on. Yeah, Ken called me the other day. Said he was trying to find a job, but no one wants to hire someone who's been out of work for years and has no references. I just hummed. He also mentioned something about you ruining his life. That made me laugh. Oh, I ruined his life? I said. He did a pretty good job of that himself. The colleague chuckled awkwardly, like he wasn't sure if he should agree. But deep down I could hear the pity in his voice. Not for Ken, no, for me. And that made me sick. I didn't want pity, I wanted respect, so I kept moving forward. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. From Ken, handwritten. Messy, like he scribbled it during a lunch break or between sweeping factory floors. Taylor, I know I hurt you. I was stupid. I got caught up in something that seemed fun and easy. I miss our home. I miss your cooking. I messed up. Please, can we talk? Ken. I crumpled the letter and dropped it straight in the trash. The audacity. He missed my cooking? like I was some diner waitress he used to visit on weekends. Not a single mention of love, not a single apology for the years of manipulation, just more selfishness, more me, me, me. I didn't respond, not with words. I went out that night and treated myself to a dinner I'd always wanted to try. Fine wine, medium rare steak, a chocolate dessert that cost more than our monthly grocery bill used to. I toasted myself. To Taylor, I whispered, the woman who saved herself. I wish I could say that was the end of it, that he faded from my life like a bad memory and never returned. But people like Ken, they don't vanish that easily. They linger like a bad smell in an old coat. A month later, I was at the grocery store browsing the produce section when I heard a voice behind me. Taylor? I turned around slowly and there he was. Ken. He looked rough. Greasy hair, bags under his eyes, skin pale like he hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. And yet he still had that fake smile on his face, that little charm he always used to get out of trouble. I just wanted to talk, he said, just for a minute. I don't think we have anything to talk about, I replied flatly. He looked around nervously. I know I messed up, I get it, but everything's falling apart. I lost the apartment, I have no one left. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no rage, just emptiness. Like he was a stranger who had once borrowed my pen and never returned it. You had someone, Ken, you had me, and you threw that away. But you've always been strong, he said, his voice breaking a little. You don't need anyone. That made me pause. It was meant to flatter me, to make me feel powerful and alone at the same time. But instead, it just reminded me of all the nights I cried alone while he was off laughing with someone else. All the hours I spent worrying about his health while he plotted how to take everything from me. You're right, I said. I don't need anyone, especially not you. And I turned around and walked away. He didn't follow. That night, I told his parents about the encounter. They sighed. I figured he'd try crawling back to you, his father said. But you did the right thing. You're not a lifeline anymore. You're free. His mother squeezed my hand. We're proud of you, dear, truly. And I knew she meant it. That weekend, I donated everything that reminded me of my past life. Old photos, wedding gifts, clothes I had worn during those dark years. Gone. I wasn't burying the past, I was releasing it. And I wasn't afraid anymore. It's strange how silence can be the loudest sound in your life. After Ken showed up at the grocery store, I kept waiting for something else. A message. Another letter. A knock at the door. But nothing came. Just quiet. And that was when I realized it was over. No more pretending, no more gaslighting, no more living with someone who looked me in the eyes and lied with ease, no more walking on eggshells, just peace, real, still, uninterrupted peace. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I exhaled without pain. I finally felt safe. But peace didn't mean passivity. I wasn't going to sit still and wait for the past to creep back in. I had plans, goals, dreams that had been collecting dust while I was too busy surviving. I signed up for a weekend pottery class. I had always wanted to try something creative with my hands. The first time I shaped clay on the spinning wheel, I laughed out loud. It was messy and weird and beautiful all at once. That little imperfect bowl I made now sits on my kitchen counter, holding lemons. It reminds me that life doesn't have to be perfect to be good. I also took a short trip alone. Just me, my camera, and a notebook. I visited a quiet town by the coast, walked barefoot in the sand, ate fresh seafood, and let the ocean wind wash through my hair like a reset button. One evening, while watching the sunset melt into the waves, I wrote in my journal, "He didn't ruin me, he released me." It became my mantra. Sometimes people ask me if I'm bitter, if I still think about him, if I feel regret. The truth? I do think about him, but not with bitterness, not even hate. I think about the version of me who stayed, who worked herself to exhaustion, hoping love would be enough. I feel sorry for her, but I also admire her. Because she didn't give up. She didn't let betrayal harden her heart. She found her way out. And that's the difference between me and Ken. He took the easy road, lies, manipulation, shortcuts. But I took the hard one, and I made it through. You know what else? His parents still call me every couple of weeks. Not because of obligation, but because they genuinely care. They've become like real parents to me. They even visited once and brought me fresh flowers and a homemade casserole. "We're grateful to you, Taylor," his mother said, hugging me. "You loved him more than he ever deserved." I smiled but didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some truths don't need repeating. Ken, on the other hand, kept spiraling. Last I heard, he'd been fired from the factory, showed up late too often, got into arguments with coworkers, tried borrowing money from mutual friends, but no one trusted him anymore. He became a man with nowhere to go. And I was exactly where I belonged. Work was thriving. I was thriving. I even started mentoring some of the younger women at my company. I saw bits of my younger self in them, ambitious, hopeful, sometimes afraid. I told them what I wish someone had told me when I was their age. You can be kind and still say no. You can love someone and still leave when it hurts. And you never, ever owe your life to someone who makes you feel small. It's funny how your worst chapters can become someone else's guidebook. I got a message on LinkedIn not long ago from a woman I barely remembered. We'd worked together briefly years ago. She wrote, "Taylor, I just wanted to say thank you. You probably don't even remember, but you once told me, 'You deserve to be chosen every day.' I left an abusive relationship 2 years ago. Your words stuck with me. Thank you for being brave." I cried when I read it, because in that moment I knew everything I went through wasn't just pain, it had purpose. It shaped me into someone others could lean on, someone who could stand tall and say, "I made it, so can you." One night, as I was folding laundry and watching one of my favorite old movies, I got another letter in the mail. This one wasn't from Ken. It was from his ex-girlfriend, the doctor. I hesitated for a moment before opening it, expecting more manipulation, more twisted logic. But instead, it was short. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. I lost everything, but you gained it all. I hope you're happy." I folded the note and tucked it away. Not because I forgave her, but because closure doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in silence and ink. And yes, she was right about one thing. I did gain everything. Freedom, peace, confidence, a home of my own, a life that finally felt like mine. I won't lie. There are still scars. I still flinch when someone hides their phone screen. I still get nervous when a man is overly charming too quickly, but I'm healing, day by day. And I'm open, not to getting hurt again, but to trusting myself more, to believing that I can spot red flags, that I'll never be that quiet, overworked woman begging for crumbs of love ever again. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe one day I'll meet someone kind, someone real. But for now, I have myself, and that's enough. To anyone listening who's ever been lied to, used, or made to feel like they weren't enough, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You are more than what they did to you. You are not broken. You are becoming. And if you've ever felt like your world was falling apart, maybe it was actually falling into place. Because I've been there. And now I'm here. Alone, yes. But never lonely. Free.